Hey there, Laker fans. Welcome to another episode of Lakers Detailed. I am your host, Vinay, with my co host, Raj. The Lakers have not played a couple of games now. A few games have been postponed, Charlotte and other games, due to the California wildfires that have affected Southern California. So, before we get into anything Lakers related, Raj and I wanted to make sure that we send our thoughts, prayers, condolences, everything to the folks that have been affected by the California wildfires, the folks that are in the Pacific Palisades, the folks that are in the Encino area, just Altadena area. These are places that I've lived at. I used to live in Pasadena. I've lived in South LA. I've been to the Palisades before. I have friends who live in the valley currently right now that are affected by this. And Raj, I know you have friends that are affected by this as well. So we want to make sure that we started off the pod today just mentioning that for anybody who's in the Southern California area, if you can donate to wherever your local shelters are, I'm sure you can look it up. Donate, volunteer, send money to GoFundMe's for people who've lost their homes, just whatever you can do. I think everybody would appreciate it. So we certainly want to mention that. And a friend of both mine and yours, Raj, somebody that we wanted to mention on this pod, his handle on Twitter or on X is Dime Dropper, and he covers the Clippers. He does a really wonderful job covering the Clippers. He coaches a young team, AAU team of kids. Really wonderful guy. He was directly affected by the fire. Lost his home. Lost a ton of stuff. And it's affected both his home as well as his, I think his father's business burnt down too as well in the Palisades. So we want to make sure that we shouted, not really shouted him out, but just kind of let folks know. I think he has a GoFundMe.
Yes.
That's on his account. I'm going to make sure I add it to the YouTube video as well as to the stream at the bottom. Folks, if you have anything that you like to donate, please do so. I'll make sure that we do something here on our behalf of Lakers Detail. But a really wonderful guy, and certainly adds great basketball commentary to the community. So that's Dime Dropper Pod is his X handle.
He does have a GoFundMe. It's shared on my page. I'll also tweet out the link. After this pod is done, and shout out to Dime. Lost everything, in the fire, and Vinay, basketball is everything until it's not. Like that's just kind of how life works. Just like the Dodgers win was a collective Los Angeles win. This is a California win. This is a California loss. So like tough to watch. Even for someone like me, it was tough to get back to basketball. Even just the last day or so was the only time I got to kind of go back and enjoy hoops again in that way. So if you're able to donate, please do. Grow. Just personally, I lived in Malibu for a while, and I grew up in South LA in that area. Know people who lost their homes, that's a crazy sentence to say out loud. Like someone that lost their house. I don't even know how you mentally rectify yourself from that, but we'll build back as a community. And if you're able to donate, please do. People's GoFundMe's are out there. There's places that are taking donations. I know in Pasadena they have a huge kind of donation. I think near the Rose Bowl, Vinay, if I have that correct, they have a spot there.
The Rose Bowl, the Pasadena Convention Center, even Santa Anita Park, they're taking donations there. I mean, the support from what I've seen from LA has been overwhelming because they're actually sending people back and saying, you guys are bringing too much stuff right now. So it's been great to see that. But I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
you're good.
I just want to add to what you said. Like, if you've ever been in LA for even a small amount of time, like you feel for Los Angeles and the folks that are there. So, I'm with Raj, dude. Like, it's just, I lived in LA for like 15 years before we kind of moved to Orange County, and then eventually I moved out here. But it's I feel it every day.
Right. And so if you find places that are taking donations, just look out in your community and help wherever you can, and we'll build this back, hopefully as fast as we can. But just a sad tragedy in time in LA. And just wanted to say my piece on that. And hopefully whoever's going through that finds the strength where they can, and gets help where it's needed.
Yeah, absolutely. We're hoping they bounce back fast sooner than later. So, folks, like we mentioned, anything you could do to help the folks out in Southern California is always appreciated. And we wouldn't be Laker fans, if it wasn't for the city of Los Angeles, I think that has a lot to do with what makes Laker fans what they are. So, like the same way we say that there's a very human element to the sport that we love watching, there is a human element to the fans you talk to and hang out with and discuss sports with. So please make sure to reach out to the folks that you can. Raj, the fires have also affected Laker players. It's also affected, JJ Redick did a post game after a practice, talked about, what he went through emotionally, seeing that his home was burnt down. Very clearly said that the material things didn't matter to him. It was all the personal things. I think he mentions his son has a picture that he drew for him 10 years ago that he had framed that he no longer has anymore. So clearly this is hurting not only the community on a very personal level. This is also affecting JJ, who's a part of our community too as well. It's affected the team. I think LeBron's home, AD's home is not necessarily in danger, but could be in danger if things go the wrong way with these wins. So that being said, we did want to talk a little bit about, just a few different basketball topics that have been coming up. Granted, the Lakers have been postponing games, but the rest of the league is continuing. The games still continue, and life continues to move forward in that regards until these fires die down for us. And so today we had three topics that I wanted to discuss. And of course, for the folks who are joining us via YouTube or even through X, you can always leave your questions in the chat, and me and Raj will definitely throw them up there, or your comments, and we'll throw them up there and we'll discuss it. But we had three topics that we wanted to discuss today that I thought would be interesting in the 1 week that's been gone. The first being, all right, let me primer this actually, Raj. There's only been two games that have happened since we last potted, which was one was the Houston game. Second one was the Dallas game. Both of those games, I did a Lakers extra detailed. So if folks haven't seen that, you guys can catch it on the YouTube channel or my X account. Just short 15-minute videos kind of breaking down what the key stretches of basketball sort of decided the game for the Lakers. Something that I think I'm going to test out doing a little bit more to see if the Laker fans enjoy it. But only two games happened. And in both of those games, the Houston game, the Lakers go down big, double digits. Then they make a roaring comeback in the third quarter against Houston, knock down a bunch of threes, start playing good defense, and then end up losing that game in the end with some very suspect officiating going down the stretch of that game. And then they show up to Dallas, granted, right the day before these wildfires kind of became what they did. Clearly out of sorts, playing a step behind everything Dallas was doing. And they're down 5 at the half. Things get worse in the second half. And the Lakers look like a team that has no business being on the floor against the Dallas team that had no Luka, no Kyrie, and no Daniel Gafford too at the same time. So there's three topics I want to talk to you about, Raj. And we'll always tangent if we have to tangent, depending on what happens. First and foremost, the first topic I want to talk about was the merit of swapping Rui Hachimura out of the starting lineup for Dorian Finney-Smith, who seems to be continuing to grow. That's the first one I had. The second topic that I had that I thought would be good for us to discuss is just sort of the stuff that's been going around. People talking about Walker Kessler, some people talking about Nick Richards, some people talking about getting a ball handler. This idea of spending future assets for certain types of players. And then the third thing I think we could talk about was two things that I talked about on Lakers Extra Detailed, which is the transition defense, how we fix that, and then the switching issue and getting lost on switches, how we can fix that. So we'll jump around probably here and there, but let's hit on the first topic, Raj. There's been a lot of groundswell on Twitter, and within the Laker fan base, Laker Twitter, about swapping Dorian Finney-Smith with Rui Hachimura. Where are you at with what you've seen out of those guys?
Yeah, it's interesting because I was there at that Cavs game, Vinay, where they first, showed Dorian and Shake Milton as well. You can already feel it in the crowd, and I think we do this as Laker fans. We throw the whole world on one role player's shoulders. We just transfer that world holding power onto whoever we believe is the one that is the least common denominator in the group. And so right now that guy is Rui Hachimura. It was held by Russell Westbrook for a little while, and he never ran a rally race, Vinay, but it feels like D'Angelo Russell was running behind him, and he has passed the torch to D'Angelo Russell, and that torch is now passed off to Rui Hachimura, who now holds this torch of the player that most fans are like, get him off my team, or whatever it is. How I look at it, Vinay, is I think like the starter bench, I think that conversation it's too rigid. I feel like you can play both of them their minutes, whoever's starting. I think the issue that Rui is getting into, and I think why JJ Redick pulled Rui Hachimura 30 seconds into the second half, which is a loud gesture, right? I mean, that's a pretty loud gesture to pull a guy, 30 seconds into a half to kind of show, this is not working, or you could have just pulled him before the half started. I think Dorian will eventually start, Vinay. I'm in no rush for that to happen. I guess I want that to happen, I guess, organically. And the Dallas and Houston losses, to me, I don't throw that on the shoulders of Rui Hachimura. I don't know if you're on there. You did the Lakers Extra Detailed, which everyone should go check out. Vinay, sitting there talking with film, I think is always extremely insightful to go and tune into. But I think we're going to talk about the switching later, and I think there's stuff to kind of mitigate how that works. And I think Rui's already not a great switching defender, but I think Dorian will eventually start. It's just I don't understand why that has to happen now, I guess, or in whatever games are coming up. I think there's ways to kind of infiltrate Dorian into his minutes without moving Rui to the bench, because I don't want to lose Rui Hachimura as a player, as a contributor that I think is going to be necessary until the trade deadline. I think benching him now without really the merit of it, 2 losses, right, is really what it is. You just had a good showing against Cleveland. You beat a very good Atlanta team, and you beat the Portland Trailblazers, and you have 2 losses on the road.
And we beat the Kings too, right? Did we play the Kings after Atlanta? What was the game that did we not beat the Kings recently, or am I forgetting something? I might be wrong. Kings, go ahead, continue.
Yeah. So I just think I think losses kind of have to navigate you here. And I think 2 road losses just isn't enough to kind of pull him to the bench. And look, Rui, I always say this, Renee, if you put your shoes on Rui Hachimura's shoes, he's shooting 43% from 3 on the season. He's shooting like 44% on his catch and shoot threes. He's been a knockdown corner guy. I think he's attempting to rebound more. Now the defensive kind of struggles are what they are. But I would kind of keep him still in the starting lineup. Is that controversial? Like, where are you at? I guess with that.
Yeah. So I think I'm with you. I think the issue is that we are trying to force the fit. We're trying to make. I think the folks that want Rui out are trying to force a better fit. But the problem is that I think there's for coaches, they can't just. It's hard to just tell a guy like, we just think this guy fits a little bit better, so we're going to swap you to the bench, even though you haven't really done anything wrong. So I think what you're saying is right. I think. See, the only thing, Raj, is that I don't know if it can happen organically. Like the Lakers would have to lose a lot of games for them to make that switch. So granted, they've lost 2 in a row. Fingers crossed we don't lose against the Spurs. But if we lose against the Spurs, then you're probably, and that starting unit doesn't do well, then you're probably looking at, and it's not like one of those things like the Dallas game where everybody's playing terribly. You might see a situation where Rui gets swapped out. But I don't know how you could do it organically, because he's kind of doing everything you're asking him to do, right? He's defending the people that you're asking to. Sometimes he knocks down the threes. Sometimes he doesn't knock down the threes, but he's not shooting enough. He averages less than 10 shots a game. So it's not like he's averaging a ton of shots to really hurt you. So I don't know how JJ navigates the decision, how you navigate the justification of that decision. How do you go to Rui to say that? What do you think about the fit, though? What do you think about the merit? The argument that the folks are making that want that change to be made is that Dorian is a better fit for that starting group. What do you think about that idea?
Before that, not to answer that question, but Vinay, Paul George had another just terrible press conference that
he's been on a run, dude.
Right. But that there's a lot of truth in comedy, right? As well. There's a lot of truth in a terrible quote. Paul George came out and they asked him, how do you feel about playing center? This is Paul George, $50 million guy on a team that's 15 and 21, Vinay. They are the 12th seed in the Eastern Conference. The quote should be, I believe, I'll do whatever the coaching staff says. I'm locked into whatever Nick Nurse wants me to do. But that's not what Paul George said. Paul George said, look, I actually prefer to chase guards. But if Nick wants me to, then I guess I can protect the rim. There's a lot of funny jokes within that. But now I want you to transfer that mentality. Rui Hachimura. Rui Hachimura is not a $50 million guy.
True.
He's an $18 million guy who's asked to play center. And I think you speak about this a lot, Vinay. He's getting asked to play a position that he doesn't play and then getting killed for it online that he can't play that position.
Yeah.
So this is not me caping for Rui Hachimura. I don't have a Rui Hachimura cape, anything like that.
Oh, I mean, but the timeline's going to say that anyway. Anytime
right,
you defend,
no,
even logically, it's caping. But go ahead,
So that's where I like again. This is why I think Vando returning, which is also imminent. Not at a large minute role, but I would kind of like to see him and Rui play some minutes. I just would like to see the team healthy before, I guess, going right away with the bench. But the fit, I think it's clear. I think Dorian is the better fit. I think Dorian is what you would hope Rui to be. Right? Is kind of the issue, I guess. Right? What Dorian is professionally good at is what you're hoping Rui is good at. I guess the ceiling that you would hope that Rui gives you, and it's a reason why Rui makes 18, and I don't know what Dorian makes. I think he makes like 14 or 13. If I
think about 15, 14, 15.
Yeah. 14, 15. I'm not saying he's worth less as a player. It's just I think Rui's offensive ceiling is supposed to hit you at a higher bump, the ability to create your own shot, to be able to kind of run an isolation score for him. Now, granted, those shots are less and less because Anthony Davis and LeBron James also start next to him. But but I think the fit with Dorian is extremely clear. And again, I've been consistent on this. I think Dorian will eventually start. He's already starting second halves. Like that's where the writing is leading to. And I understand the position of if we're going to be there already, why not jump the fence and get there now? I totally understand it. I also think you're dealing with another human being that's ahead of him. And so I think there's got to be a way that this is planned out in a way that doesn't just look like, we traded for your replacement and now he's ahead of you.
Yeah.
And now you better be packing bags and looking at where you're going to stay next kind of thing.
And to be fair, the Lakers fan base on X, I keep calling it Twitter. I interchange Twitter and X because I can't keep track. Like I don't care to keep track of it, but like Lakers fans on X are not quite known to have patience when it comes to stuff. So it's like, if the data, and I think the data has been our guy Pick Up Hoop. He posted, I know, a reply to something where he said like the Lakers are like plus 61 net rating in a very small sample size, but like a really positive sample size with Dorian Finney-Smith with the starting group. So obviously as the sample size increases, that should normalize a little bit more. But I'm with you too. I think eventually it's going to happen. I actually think that you and I have both discussed this very extensively, even beforehand, that Rui's, I want to say we're the only ones who've ever said this, that Rui is a natural sub for, like, he's a natural offensive sub for LeBron. That is the way that I've always looked at him when we got him. I think, one of the things that happens is related to Rui is our guy, Eric Pincus, he wrote, and then he had to go and clarify because of the way he was being aggregated. But like, he wrote that, I think early in the week that the Lakers are not interested in moving Austin Reeves. There's no interest in moving Austin Reeves or Rui Hachimura. Well, that got aggregated, and
they just cut the Austin part out.
Yeah. And I forgot I'm trying to think of like a better word, but like it's like aggregate interpreted by everybody as in they're untouchable. And I didn't take it that way, but I understand why people took it that way. People took it as, oh, Rui's untouchable. We're not going to trade him. Like
you do not understand why people took it that way. There's no way. That people read that headline and thought Eric Pincus came out and said Rui Hachimura is untouchable. That's just that. Like, let's think a little bit before we just destroy the internet. Sorry.
Right. And so I felt bad because Eric had to come out and he had to correct clarify the aggregation. He's like, hey, I'm not saying that they're never going to trade him. And I think it's unfortunate because when people this is a different issue in itself, so we won't go on the tangent, but when things get aggregated, that's one issue if the aggregation is bad. But the other thing that's also bad is people are reading it and substituting in words that don't exist. This is that famous tweet that keeps getting shared where somebody's like, oh, I hate waffles, and somebody's like, well, you don't like pancakes? Like that's like one of those things. And so I don't think Rui is untouchable. I think that what Eric is essentially saying is, hey, we do value him more than probably what the casual observer is valuing him. And you and I have both, I think, actively said that Rui, when you're looking at him at the lens of, well, what is he doing to help LeBron? What is he doing to help AD? Then that's a very different lens compared to, is he a productive basketball player in a vacuum?
Yeah.
And the rest of the league looks at Rui that way, like, hey, can he be a productive player in our system or with the guys that we have? And he does have more value like that. And I think the Lakers know that too as well. Every time Braun or AD go down, Rui's usage goes up offensively, and he usually delivers. Raj, this is a phenomenon we saw with Kyle Kuzma. If you remember 2021,
Good point.
Braun and
Yes.
AD miss a game against, I think, the OKC Thunder. Everybody thinks we're going to lose for sure. I think Rondo and Kuz went off in that game. Kuz has done it multiple times. Sometimes it's just a usage thing and balancing yourself out as a role player. But I'm with you, dude. I don't know what's going to happen, how that's going to happen. But I think that is something that's going to eventually happen. And I think do you think this Vando coming back, is going to accelerate that a little bit?
Real quick before Vando, it's just a player that I'm not a fan of, but it has very high standing around the league, and I understand why. I just think his contract is incorrect to his value. But Tobias Harris is a guy that just continues to get paid, right? I think he's making 30 this year in Detroit as a veteran that's helping out their locker room. But in any case, similar, he's probably a rich man's version of Rui Hachimura, right? A little bit more consistent, a little bit more. A little better ball handling, but kind of similar style where if you have a good team, Tobias Harris probably needs to be your third or fourth kind of tertiary scorer. And I think that's how the league kind of sees Rui Hachimura. And I think the ethos of what Eric Pincus was trying to say was, look, the Lakers aren't just going to dump Rui to dump him, right?
Yeah.
Which should have, I think, been the common sense
it's not so common anymore, brother.
Information around it, but seeing Eric having to clarify his very clear comments in the first place is just interesting. But no, so that's where I've been. I think we see the trade packages come and are flying through, and because of where the numbers add up, there's very few players that you can throw in there right now. Yeah. So our treasure chest of THT, Pat Bev, and 2 firsts has now become Rui Hachimura, Gabe Vincent, and Jared Vanderbilt. Yeah,
Jared
and
Vanderbilt,
the first round picks. Yeah, that gets to JHS. The salary. Yes, JHS, who's on every injury report, just sitting there out. But no, that's right. I would like to see what, again, number one, what Vando looks like, right? And
absolutely,
it's always fascinating to me, a player, Vinay, that doesn't need the basketball, like how much quicker, I guess, their adaptation is coming back from injury. Right, doesn't need the ball, doesn't need any offensive rhythm, everything, and defense takes some rhythm and timing as well to kind of get back to speed on. But there's a little bit more on defense you can kind of recreate in a practice sense than on the offensive end where you have to kind of get your offensive flow going. So I'd like to see what that looks like. I do think that changes. You're adding a wing that essentially is going to play the position Rui is playing and plays the position Dorian plays. Both of them. He's going to take small ball minutes from both of those guys, and I think he's a better rebounder than both of those dudes. I think he does bring some motor and just defensive energy in a way those guys do it in different ways. So I'm interested to see what Vando looks like. I do think he kind of alters the kind of how the chemistry looks on the floor. But and then you can kind of make a decision. I'm gonna put a question to you. Can Vando earn the starting spot? If Max is the 3-and-D 2 guard that we believe he is and has been, you have Austin and Max in that backcourt. Is Vando a viable starting position, or is it pretty much between Dorian? Is it Dorian's to lose, I guess, team?
Yeah, so I think he could. It really just depends on what he looks like. Like, I think the core thing that I've been trying to tell folks that in the big chat, like when they were talking about trading Rui sooner than later, is this: hey, the Lakers can't trade Rui until they know what Vando looks like, and Vando has to play 10 games in a row without getting hurt. That's a big thing right now that people have to you have to be a little realistic about that. You can't trade a guy and then hoping a guy who's been a year off, it's going to be almost a year since he's last played an NBA game. You have to see what he looks like, not only rust wise, but just in terms of how he's moving. If Vando comes back to play and he looks like 50% of what he was, just because of what injuries have done to him, that's an issue, Raj. That doesn't mean that we could just insert that's a helpful player necessarily.
Sure.
And so we have to wait. But if he's 100% Vando, I think there could be a case. You can make a case that he could come in. I think that would be a really great debate. If 5, 6, 7 games from now we're doing the pod and Vando looks like 100% Vando, I think that would be a great conversation to have because you and I think could both make the argument that even more than Dorian Finney-Smith, you're better off putting Vando in that starting lineup and then letting Rui and Dorian Finney-Smith, like a 3-and-D guy, a volume scoring guy. Now you have a little bit more of a natural substitution pattern and more balanced lineups for when it's LeBron and AD's off or AD's on and LeBron's off. And you keep the size on the floor too at the same time.
Yeah, I was watching the Bulls were playing the Kings, who, by the way, 7-game win streak for the Kings after the firing of Mike Brown, which is very interesting. DeMar DeRozan playing Doug Christie highlights to their team, just crazy. The coach was fired 2 weeks ago, but no, Lonzo Ball comes back healthy, right? Which is an amazing story. Started his first game tonight, I believe, since the horrible leg injuries that he's had. Lonzo, another guy we'd both, I think, welcome back with open arms. Just has a salary that's a little bit too much to eat right now. But no, I compare Vando to Lonzo a lot. And obviously he's not the passer that Lonzo is. Obviously, Lonzo's a special kind of point guard in that manner. But I think they bring similar just intangible stuff, especially on the defensive end. You could tell Lonzo's really energized that defense, right? Chicago was a very sad, middling team to watch, and you throw Lonzo out there with Zach LaVine, and all of a sudden, Zach LaVine has 7 straight 30-point games, and also their defense is a little bit more consistent and is just a respectable level at this point. So yeah, I would like to see what Vando, like my point being, I would like to see what Vando looks like before kind of making wholesale changes to the roster. And look, Vando just might not look ready at all. He might play 2 games and be out another week, and if that's the case, then you have to move forward, which Renee, you've already done, but you probably have to move forward as if Vando is just not a part of any of these conversations at all. But looks like he'll be back hopefully, sometime this week, and then you can really start to make evaluations. And that's the beauty to me of making the DFS trade now.
Yes.
And you can kind of evaluate what the team is. And I said this in our chat, if the effort is going to continue to wax and wane as it did on the stuff we'll talk about later in terms of the defense, then evaluate where you can, and then because I don't think a trade is changing those specific things. But Vando's, to answer your question, Vando really does change kind of the calculus of how you move forward to me.
I think even if you get like an 80% Vando, 75% Vando, I think that's a very quality, useful player. As some of the folks have said in the chat, Vando's probably going to take some of those minutes away from Cam. He'll probably take back in rotation minutes until he can ramp up to full physical play. And then just seeing just kind of what he has. What does his explosion look like? What does his agility look like? What is he technically still, technically sound defensively, the same kind of guy? Does he still have the same rebounding motor that he had before his injury? So it's a big question mark. But it's a very important question mark to help the Lakers understand at least the course of, we're almost a month away from the trade deadline. Like what the Lakers actually have to do in order to sort of move into that upper echelon. But if Vando's at 80% Vando, Raj, that's a huge deal. That allows you to put more wings on the floor against teams like OKC, against teams like Denver that are useful situationally. So let's go on to the next topic, Raj, because I think this is a nice segue to what it is. I don't want to talk about, we'll move the trade thing, the trade prospect stuff to the third section. So let's go to the second section, which is the thing that covered on Lakers Extra Detailed, which is the Lakers transition defense being an issue. Very glaring against Houston, a little less glaring, but more also equally glaring against Dallas too as well. There's 2 topics for this section: the transition defense and then the switching defense that the Lakers do. Let's touch on the transition defense first. So there is one thing that I've been observing that's happening quite a lot. It's been happening prior to the Houston-Dallas game, and it's getting kind of worse now. It's one of the main things. Originally, it was AD falls down, LeBron falls down, somebody falls down. It's a 5-on-4 going out that way. I think the Lakers have done a better job of cleaning that aspect of it. Max being inserted into the starting lineup, and then the lineups that have DFS and Max on the floor, it's been great. They do a fantastic job making sure that they cover the bases that they need to cover. But there's this thing that's going on right now that it's been hard for me to figure out, which I need your help with, which is that Houston game, Amen Thompson was basically taking it full court multiple times. He does it. When I did the breakdown, I think he did maybe 4 or 5 times. and the Lakers didn't pick him up until he literally got to the free throw line. Which at that point it's over. Like he's
Right.
like a top 1% athlete in the NBA. Him and his brother Asar, and like the Lakers had no way of stopping him from getting to the rim. He'd either draw a foul for free throws or he'd get a layup. This was over Braun, over Austin, over Rui, around AD. It didn't matter. This happened a little bit in the Dallas game too with PJ Washington. A couple of times PJ Washington gets down the floor, nobody picks him up until he gets to the free throw line. So I'm going to take a leap here. I'm going to put myself out there because this fan base already doesn't like me. LeBron is typically the guy who's not like LeBron and Rui. I don't know if they're cross-matching their assignments, but in that Houston series, Amen is guarding LeBron. But I don't know if LeBron is being assigned on Amen or if JJ wants Rui to get back to be picking up Amen. So LeBron doesn't like LeBron be all like Dylan Brooks, non-shooter, non-attacker sort of guy.
Yes.
But, so either way you do it, whether it's LeBron's assignment or it's a cross-matching assignment on defense. Hey, I'm going to get your guy, you get my guy. Very common thing. The Lakers are doing a really bad job at it. And teams are speeding up the play so the Lakers can't get back and set up those cross matches. And I think that's what's causing this issue. Raj, how do you navigate that? How do we get around that?
Yeah.
Because I can't come up with a coaching way of getting around that.
Yeah. We had this conversation so many times. And by the way, Lakers are 24th in transition defense, so still like bottom. 24th in transition defense. You look at the top of that, that list are all the teams kind of on the top of the standings as well. I'm gonna focus in on Houston because they've athletically punched us, Vinay, a few times in a row, right?
Yeah, that's their MO against us for sure.
100%. And Amin Thompson, he actually started that game with the first 6 points, and there was a level. It was funny because I was texting. I don't even know Roosh Williams. He covers the Rockets. Friend. And I texted him before the game. I was like, "How do you feel about this? How this is going?" And he's like, "Oh, you guys are gonna win. Rockets can't shoot. Jalen Green obviously has his best shooting game of his life." And then,
he's auditioning for his return back to LA, hopefully.
Right, and we started talking about Amin. And my comp for him when it was a guard version of Zion, where he just absolutely tears to the rim. And I think connecting this with the Lakers defense, Houston, when they see AD, so it's not even when AD doesn't get back, Vinny, and I see teams do this around the league to us. It's when AD goes for the offensive rebound and doesn't get it or talks to the ref for a sec. I'm not blaming any of this on Anthony Davis. This is just what happens. When he's takes a second longer to get back, the other team is gone. It's like, oh, AD's on the other side. We have an open lane to the rim. And Houston absolutely, and Jalen Green has one of the best first steps in the league. And once his jumper started going, I thought it was over with. Because once you had to guard his jumper, he was at the rim. He was finding dudes for open threes, and Amin Thompson burned us to the basket. I don't have a solve for this. There's just, I guess the answer is just you have to get back. But my point with this is you start and I think you correctly pointed out, LeBron doesn't always get back on transition defense, which I think even the best LeBron stands would be able to kind of in their heart of hearts understand what that means from a long-term marathon level of the NBA regular season, to put in those words. But that's how I kind of say you start a 40-year-old player. The transition defense needs to be worked out in other ways. You also start a guard that teams feel comfortable attacking at the basket in Austin Reeves. And I want to get to that after this, Renee, because we're going to talk about the switching, and I think it's very interesting. The Dallas media was very kind to point out that Dallas hunted Austin Reeves 30 times down the stretch or whatever the number was. But
we'll get to it.
Let's finish the transition.
Back, but go ahead.
Yeah, just finishing the transition. That's where I'm at with it. The Lakers have been a bad transition defense this year. They were a bad transition the previous year. I think they were a bad transition defense the year before as well. And I think you have a LeBron at his age. You have AD who's carrying the world on his back on the defensive end in the half court situations already. I thought Jalen Green's jump shots just kind of killed a lot of the basketball momentum of what they were trying to do, and they were giving open looks to guys who were not great shooters, and they were knocking them down, and kind of killed the confidence of kind of the defense. But where are you at with it? I guess well, you gave your point, but do you see where I'm at with it? I just transition defense is not getting solved to me in any mean, DFS is not solving your transition defense. This is a team wide kind of culture thing that is accrued too long to solve right.
Yeah.
Solve right now with the personnel issues.
Yeah. So my only solution to this was the personnel swap. So in the second half, I think they pulled Rui a little bit early.
Yes.
DFS comes in the game. They basically put Max on Jalen Green, and they put DFS on Amen Thompson, and then they wipe out, like, those two pretty much wipe out a lot of those transition opportunities that those guys are trying to hunt out because they're getting back. Both Max and DFS Dorian do a very good job of keeping the initial attack above the 3-point line. So the same way we were describing them allowing Amen to basically go unchecked to the free throw line, which is too late by the time he gets there, they were doing a better job keeping him above the 3-point. Amen's not a jump shooter like that, not a great jump shooter. So it was a big what's it called? It was helpful to help slow down transition. So my thing is, with transition defense, we can't do anything with Braun. Like, we can't tell Braun, hey, pick these guys up. It's not reasonable to do that. Like you said, he's 40 years old. It's gonna wear his legs out towards the end of the game when we really need him. AD's gonna run back when he does. When he crashes, he crashes. It is what it is. That sort of thing. Austin, we know what his deficiencies are. Max has been phenomenal. So I think this is one of those things where if you wanted to make the argument that DFS should start, this would be the argument that I would make for these sort of very specific situations. Like, in the scenario that we need to have, better transition defense to start games, at least, you can make the argument that DFS has to start. And I think that's something that the Lakers have to figure out. Like, and I think that's going to be the thing. Like, if I'm the coach, that's going to be what I'm going to try to tell. Like, I'm not going to tell Rui, you're not doing a good job at it. It's more like, I'm going to tell Rui, hey, can you, like, we have a better way of deploying you here.
Sure.
We just need to tweak this a little bit so that, because, like, I mean, if he's having closed door conversations, I'd be like, look, man, LeBron's not playing defense in transition, bro. Like, just work with me here. I just need to get DFS in here, and I don't want to put you in a position to get in trouble, that sort of thing. So that's my only thing. I think personnel is the only way you can fix that. I don't think you can coach that out of him.
Yeah, and look, there's a way to sell that to Rui as well, right? You're gonna get more shots, coming off the bench. Exactly. Which Rui, I'm sure, is saying, well, I'm in bench units, I'm still not getting shots, but I think there's a way to sell that. I also thought in that Houston game, but I thought our offense was terrible, to start, and I thought that created a lot of the runouts. Transition defense sometimes starts with your offense, the long shots you take, the bad shots you take. Houston had an interesting kind of wrinkle. We haven't spoke about this, but they started Dillon Brooks on Anthony Davis in that Houston game. And it was kind of like a bait. Ime Udoka, which clearly doesn't like LeBron or, any of our team, but put Dillon Brooks on AD and said, post him up. I dare you. And the Lakers obliged. They said, okay. And they just were flummoxed in how to solve that. And I thought that got Houston out and running. And obviously, I think DFS coming for Rui in that third quarter helped as well. But Rui came back and then they continued to play well. He continued to make a run. Mm-hmm. He had some big shots as well. So yeah, I think it's a team-wide thing. I do think, like, DFS's speed, I guess, just from a to B standpoint, is also faster than Rui Hachimura, which makes sense. I think he weighs less and he's a 4 with a little bit more mobility. But in that case, if that's the argument, then start Jared Vanderbilt, who's the
exactly.
That's more speed guy that gets back in transition defense and kind of makes defensive plays, is a defensive playmaker. But I could see that. I could see how that could be the sell. Again, my whole point is, I think 2 games is very quick to make that assertion. But we'll see. But DFS has fit well.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, one thing that I just want to bring up also is Rui was more effective he was the best option against Steven Adams for the Lakers in that Houston game. Like, he was, I know I saw the tweets when this was a very heated debate in the big chat, because I had to literally pull the film to be like, watch what Rui is doing to help the Lakers out here. Because there's a couple tweets about Rui not rebounding enough against Houston. And I was like, well, what is he doing? Like, if you're going to say he's not getting enough rebounds, he must be doing something else to not get rebounds, because there's no reason for him to not get rebounds at his size.
He had 0, I believe, in Houston.
Yeah,
right? Yeah, 0 rebounds.
I think he had 1. I think he had 1 rebound. Or
I
he had
remember
none?
doing, yeah, I think I did the Locked On Lakers and he had 0. But in
Okay.
any case, yeah, I don't
Anyways,
think he was
very
purposely
low,
not
very
trying to
low number.
rebound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I had to like pull the tape, like, because people are telling me, folks are telling me, oh, LeBron has 13 rebounds. How come Rui doesn't have any? So it's okay. You know what?
Right.
You're right. Let me go look at the tape. In fact, let me go look and see what LeBron was doing. What was LeBron doing that was getting him 13 rebounds, and what was Rui doing that wasn't getting him many rebounds? And I'm
Mm.
going to go watch the fourth quarter because that's really money time. That's the time that's most important. That last shift, and I'm watching Rui full on face guard have to like wrestle with Steven Adams to make sure that he doesn't get the offensive rebound. And I'm seeing like LeBron be the extra guy that's in there that grabs a rebound and starts the break. That's, just good basketball guys doing their roles to help each other out. And that was sort of the things that, that's one of those things that I'm looking at. Like DFS is not going to be able to do that against Steven Adams in those situations. Or even Vando is not going to be able to do that because Steven Adams is a heavy guy. He's a big boy. So Rui, he might not be as tall or as explosive athletically, but he's heavy. He's strong
Mm-hmm.
for his size. And so I thought the Lakers did a nice job when he was on the floor, when Steven Adams was on the floor, because Jackson Hayes got overwhelmed by Steven Adams.
Yeah.
That Rui was doing a really nice job wrestling with him. So there's a part of this where Rui has been the staple of the Lakers starting lineup, but might be a little more situational. Maybe we don't see that until the playoffs actually happen, but he might be trending into that little situational territory a little bit. But when Bron and AD are out, like he's your third guy. Like he's the guy that you should be running your offense through. So it'll be interesting to see how they deal with it. Roger, you mentioned this before. This switching thing.
Mm.
You and I have talked about this. I would like to say we
Yes.
coined the term stupid switching. I'm sure there's a nicer way of saying it, but the Lakers had a bad habit of doing a lot of stupid switching, which is they switch everything, like even when they don't have the personnel to do it. And so we like to
Right.
call that stupid switching. And they've been doing that a little bit more. Teams have been trying to get them to do it a little bit more. It hurt them a lot against Dallas because Dallas was targeting Austin Reeves. Um, my only pushback on that statement from the folks that were saying that he was targeted 15 times. He also did get a bunch of stops too. Like it wasn't like they were
Oh, yeah.
scoring every single time they were targeting him. But obviously more Spencer Dinwiddie gave him problems.
Can we stay there for a sec? I
Yeah.
want to ask you, I guess, philosophically, he was hunted.
Yeah.
Austin Reeves was hunted down the stretch of that game.
Mhm.
So my thing is, as a team, then there's got to be some way where you recognize that that's happening, right?
Did
Or
you see
there's got to
do you
be.
see what Dorian said after that game? He said that we didn't help Austin out by not communicating like whether to switch, not to switch, or something like that on it.
Okay, I didn't get to hear his comments on that.
Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead though.
But I'm just like, it's true. He was hunted, and you're right. He did get stops. To me, as a team, then there needs to be some understanding of what's going on here, and there's got to
Yeah.
be help. Dinwiddie, a lot of jokes, and when he was in the Lakers, that dude's a one-on-one ball. That he's a guy that Dallas goes to. He can
That's his game.
absolutely. That's his game.
Yeah.
He can score off the bounce, and we let him play playground basketball for 3-4 minutes, and I thought let kind of Dallas off the hook with their defense. But I'm gonna ask you: the team is hunting a player as Austin Reeves. I haven't got to go into your full film breakdown yet. So I don't know if you got into this, but I guess what's your solve there? Let's go into Dallas. Dallas is hunting Austin Reeves. Is it a point where you say, look, Austin, you got to be able to guard Spencer Dinwiddie? Is it all right, we're sending two, we're being more careful with our switches. We're making them earn the switch, was the term I like to use, make teams earn the switch, which we did not make Dallas earn a switch at all. They had Quentin Grimes coming up to set the screen at half court, Vinay, and we're just like, all right, here you go. Here's Spencer. There was just no earning of that switch, no actual screen set.
What was the one? There was one where PJ Washington basically posts up Austin, or like he gets Austin on an early switch, and I was just like, he didn't even like really screen. I think it's the one where Austin gets elbowed in the face or something like that. But like that was one that started off of a no effort screen. We just gave that switch up, and they went right to him.
Right, and the LFR pod spoke about this, how LeBron and AD are very, very okay with, to put it nicely, giving up the switch because it kind of takes them out of the play isn't the right term, but I guess passes off responsibility on a
but that's
possession defense.
Fortunately, we don't have to worry about LeBron and AD game, but it's lazy, right? Like I can say that it's lazy. Like if you ask what the solution is, and I'll let you finish your thought here. I think the first and foremost thing is these guys have to stop doing that. Like, there's no reason for, if you're a 6'9" guy and you're guarding a 6'9" guy and you see a guard coming to screen you, there's zero reason, unless it's a movement action and like they're on the run.
Mhm.
It's like, bang, bang, you got to kind of make that decision. That's not what Dallas was doing. Dallas is like dribble, dribble, dribble,
Right.
call you
Very
over.
slow
It's coming.
screen.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, why are we just giving up those switches? And I am with you, Raj. Like, I'll take it one step further and say what you probably don't want to say. Like, LeBron and AD shouldn't be do that. That's really lazy on their part to just hand off guys, knowing that Austin's not the size, doesn't even have the size to match up. Does Austin have to take the challenge every now and then? For sure. No disagreement. We saw him doing it against DeAndre Hunter
Yeah.
in the Atlanta game on a bang bang play, but we shouldn't be giving Dallas the opportunity to dictate where they want to go, and I think the Lakers did that in that situation. But go ahead, finish your thought.
Yeah.
LFR pod.
Right. I was just citing that, they kind of spoke about how, AD and LeBron, well, because again, in the Dallas game, I'll zoom in a little bit. When Klay Thompson comes and sets the screen, and now AD's guarding Klay Thompson. I'm not saying he's doing this to catch a break or anything, but in AD's head, he's like, I'm guarding Klay Thompson. I have no help responsibility.
Yeah.
Here, right. Which is true, which is factually true once you're on Klay Thompson. My point is, why is AD on Klay Thompson? Like that, right. Like there's unless there was a super hard screen or you couldn't get through. There's situational situational switching that occurs on every NBA possession. But I was watching the Celtics play today, and they were. I'm already forgetting their opponent. The Pelicans. They're playing the Pelicans, and they start 4 guys they're very comfortable switching with, and they also start Porzingis, and they also play Al Horford. There's very few times you see Porzingis on an island on a player that he should not be guarding. It doesn't happen. Boston finds a way to kind of get him out of there. They cross switch where they kind of take him out before the switching even occurs. They kind of read what play is about to be run. I'm just saying there's a little bit more like organizational stuff that has to go on. But let's get back to Austin. I saw that number come out, and obviously the internet went into a frenzy, and
lowlights is engagement gold mine, brother.
It wasn't even lowlights; it was stat lowlights, which is even worse to me. Where you just you parade a stat on a billboard with no context to it. Of one of their, I'm not going to say their name, but someone just like, Austin Reeves got hunted 15 times on this possession, and that's something that occurs, right? That happened with D'Lo as well. That happened with, other small guards that we've had, throughout, in the past. But I think there's a level of just laziness that occurs with it. And that's what I was asking you. The solution there to me is not, Austin, good luck, pal. And to me, that's not the solution at all. The solution has to be, there's got to be some help coming. There's got a place where you kind of dictate where your okay shot's coming from. And to me, in that particular game, Spencer Dinwiddie getting to, Rucker Park his way to the basket every time. To me, that wasn't the solution. So that was my only thing I wanted to kind of put into that, our switching conversation.
Yeah. I think there's, again, Dallas situation might have been a little bit different because of the wildfires thing. It seemed like maybe the entire team kind of played, outside of like Max and DFS, the entire team kind of played not great. So I don't know if that was just a very one-off sort of thing, but contextually for because Houston tried to set up that switcher. They'd have like Fred VanVleet come and screen for Amen Thompson, and when that happened, like it would be like a last minute, like a very quick screen, and then Amen would already be going downhill, and Austin had no chance at defending that. So like there's a part of this where the communication on the back end is really poor, and when I did the breakdown, this is one of those things where I thought coaching can help. Like there has to be a very clear directive for Laker players that if you are going to be in a situation where it's very clear they're trying to hunt out a switch, there has to be very clear communication from everybody. And this is still a crazy thing, Raj, that I think we keep hearing over and over again, that the Lakers do not communicate on the floor. Like they're not a vocal team. And that's very crazy for me to hear, because it's like, I don't know any good basketball teams that don't communicate with each other vocally on the court.
They don't. It doesn't exist.
Yeah. And so I don't know if that's part of what the issue is with this team, but there has to be like a very clear directive, like almost to the point where I think like JJ should like penalize players for not communicating with each other about like what the coverage needs to be. Does it need to be ice? Are we switching this? Stay with your man. I'll get out of your way. That sort of thing. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they do it. But this is something I think they can coach out of it.
Yeah, I
Go ahead.
was gonna say because George makes a good point here. Switching avoids the team defense going in rotation. That's valid. That's the whole I think point of switching. It's why Houston did it against the Warriors, right? The whole point of that was to kind of keep all those bajillion ball screens with Clay and Steph. Try to keep those into one-on-one matchups and kind of getting the Warriors out of what they were doing. My whole thing is that Dallas team. They didn't have Luka. They didn't have Kyrie. There was no reason to absolutely just give up consistent one-on-one matchups in every situation. So
And if
I
you're
just
gonna give
think
up
that
one-on-ones, give them to Clay. Like make Clay have to beat you one-on-one with a live dribble, not
sure,
Spencer.
or at least make Dallas run their offense, right? Make Dallas create a look out of their offense without their two world star ball handlers that they were out of. So I just think the Lakers go to it. It brings out lazy tendencies. It's just I've seen it way too long. But
so I think Ramel, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Brings up a nice question on the YouTube. He says AD should be at the forefront of that. No, being vocal on defense, and I think you're right, and I think he is. But Dallas did that thing where they played Maxi Kleber and they pulled AD away from the rim, so now he's not behind. He can't see the basketball in front of him, and I want to say this is one of the first times this season, if I remember correctly, where AD has had to play against a matchup that's actually pulled him out to the perimeter. A lot of times he's usually still somewhere in the paint, and I think Dallas was able to really kind of pick on him in regard. They had Maxi Kleber set up like these disguised down screens that turned into open 3-point opportunities. I think in the third quarter where they blew the game open, Jaden Hardy and then I think Klay Thompson or Quentin Grimes, or I forgot who it was. They run like the same exact play twice in a row, and they get two open threes. And then I think Klay hits a transition three to put him up. So it's certainly a communication thing. I think that is something that can be coached out of it. I don't think it's a personnel thing. And it's something that they have to figure out because I think the best teams in the NBA are going to try and find small ways like that to kind of take them out. Some of the folks are saying it in the YouTube chat. As always, folks, we appreciate the YouTube chats.
yes,
We'll definitely get them all up here. Already got some trade stuff in here from Kane, but Savage saying like they need Vando. Like that's a good example. Like a team that's trying to go all switch. A guy like Vando certainly helps because now you're not, maybe if you don't need the scoring, you don't have to have Rui out there. Vando's better at not giving up those switches. He'll stick with this guy, and you don't really run into those situations. So it'll be interesting to see how they address it, Raj. I think the wildfire thing probably was in their heads a little bit. Maybe they weren't really focused on the game as much as they probably should be, and that's a very human thing. So I'm okay with that. So hopefully this break sort of helps them out, kind of recharges the batteries and their attention to the detail when it comes to it. Did you have any last thoughts on those two things, the transition defense or the switching defense?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I think DFS has kind of been noted as very vocal already. I guess the guy that talks on defense, but very strange. The Lakers aren't. I mean, Max is the one young guy, but everyone else is a veteran who's been around and been on very good teams.
Raj, can we tangent for a second? How good has Max looked, dude? Max has been freaking amazing. Like
incredible.
Jalen had a good game. Jalen Green had a good game. But bro, there was some shit that Max was doing. Like Max punches one of their layups off the backboard. I think he had another block in the Dallas game. He blocked somebody off the backboard. Like I said this in the breakdown. He has a spin move. So I covered this in the Houston game. So Şengün was doing this thing where he'd throw a screen and he'd slide down on purpose, which is, I was pretty sure, I'm like, dude, this has got to be an illegal screen, but the refs are so inconsistent. We don't know what it is. And Max was doing a spin move. Like he'd literally do like a spin move off the screens because he was able to turn and get in front of the guy, the offensive player, faster. And he does like a double spin move on one possession. But dude, tell me if I'm too crazy when I'm saying this, okay? If this statement is too outlandish. Max is a more technically proficient defender than KCP was when he played for the Lakers. Am I going a step too far when I say that?
That's crazy. That's the exact verbiage. I didn't compare him to KCP, but that's the exact verbiage I used with him last year. I said, I don't remember. I said he was our most like fundamentally sound defender.
Yeah, that's another way of saying it. Perfect.
Yeah, and that's what I'm seeing now. KCP. It's interesting because very different. I think KCP is just better on point of attack guards
Mhm.
and chasing over screens. But Max's ability to, I think your point with this is spot on, to kind of understand which guide hand goes where, kind of where he's supposed to close out to, how to move his feet. And, when a player attacks his kind of outside leg, he's able to kind of recover. He looks awesome, man. I just, you said he should have been playing 30 minutes, to start the season. And, I said he's got to earn that. He's earned that. And in the Dallas game, there was plays where he was carrying the Lakers offense. Like
The start of the third, him and
yeah,
Braun had Braun finds him on a cut for a dunk in transition for a leak out dunk. I think it's a three in the corner, I want to say.
yeah. I was driving to the South Bay game and the radio was like Max Christie on a personal 7-0 run. I was like, oh wow, this dude is like, just carrying the offense for stretches. His ability to attack the rim, and he's like, we talk about rim pressure a lot, and from our guards, and I think rim pressure is looked at as dribbling the ball from top of the 3-point line down to the rim. But there's other ways to rim pressure, right? There's ways to cut, to get lobs. Max's ability to put pressure on the rim in an athletic way.
I mean,
Yeah,
KCP couldn't do it. Yeah, KCP, remember he used to miss dunks or he'd get fouled. He'd try to miss. Go ahead.
Exactly. And so Austin puts pressure on the rim and is in his own way, and Max does it in a different way. He does it off cuts. He does it off, two-hand dunks. I don't remember, you're the one who said he's allowed to dunk with his left hand. It's okay.
Once he figures it out, dude,
yeah,
he's still to dunk with two hands.
Right. Doesn't always have to go with two hands. But I think the smart thing about two hands, Vinay, is you're more likely to get a foul call. I feel like there's more likely to get some contact. Now you're less likely to finish the contact through the contact. But no, he's looked awesome, and I'm glad you went to that tangent. He's solidified, I think, as the starting two guard. And continuing to hit his three. So
when I watch the tape on him, the main difference I see. So first of all, he's tougher. Like he's physically stronger, than KCP. So when I saw him match up against Jalen Green looked physically smaller than Max. I was like, dude, Max looks like he should overwhelm him physically. And Jalen Green hit a bunch of BS threes, some crazy deep threes. I was like, bro, there's no way this guy's this good of a 3-point shooter. So it kind of inflates some of his scoring stats. But I would say when I watch him on a technical level, the main difference that he has between him and KCP is Max will meet you at the top of your layup attempts. He'll try and block your shots, whereas KCP wasn't the type to try and do that. KCP tried to strip you on the way up. That's kind of what he used to do more. And I think it's a testament just kind of Max's size, his posture, his stature. He's very upright when he plays defense. He doesn't have to get too low outside of his initial stance defensively. So, but I mean, I could do a whole thing on Max, but he's just been great, dude. He's been awesome.
Yeah. Last thing on Max, wrong one from him. The magnet ball is also true, but
very true. Yeah.
Gray Raj had Max's free throw rate has been a good sign.
Absolutely.
Not just free throw rate, but he's shooting 90% at the line, which
you brought up his clutch free throws against the Golden State game.
Yes, clutch free throws against Golden State, and I didn't profile him as a 90% free throw shooter, right? I don't think he was that even coming out. I don't have his college numbers, but to me, that's a great sign. As a player that's found his form. I think free throw shooting is a little bit more. It's a higher ability to project how a player is going to shoot in their career over even 3-point percentage. So, just he's found his stride and is playing well.
Yeah. So, Raj, let's get to the third topic that we have for the last 10. Our normal hour, 10, hour 15. We can go less than that if we have to. Also, the third topic, which is this thing that's been discussed. Obviously, we're about a month away from the trade deadline. I think both you and I have been very adamant that the Lakers really, really need a quality backup center. So we're not using LeBron and or AD or Rui, which is what we're using right now as sort of our burly, bruising, furniture moving center. Lakers really need one badly to deal with these Steven Adams types. I know that you like Koloko a lot because of his ability to run the floor and finish plays and his length to affect guys. Jackson Hayes has had sort of a rough. I think he had a good game, I want to say, against Atlanta, but then he had a rough game against Houston. Got very overwhelmed by Steven Adams, and then follows up with kind of a so-so game against Dallas too as well. Jackson, not a heavy dude, so he's always going to struggle against guys that are stronger than him, even in box outs. So there's a lot of stuff that people things are getting flooded. There's Nick Richards, Nikola Vucevic, Day'Ron Sharp. Guy that you and I both like, are friend of the pod, Coach Jerome of Coach's Den, also a big fan of Damon Sharp. And there's a lot of different names that can pop out. Jonas is still there too as well. But there's one name in particular that costs a lot that people have been discussing. That's Walker Kessler. A lot of folks have been pushing the idea that a player like Walker Kessler is worth 2 first round picks, which is a very steep price. But part of the reason for the steep price is his metrics. His advanced metrics look very good.
Sure.
Traditional center, big guy, 7+ foot guy, young, and he himself was a high pick to himself, so that's part of it too as well. But 2 first round picks is a pretty steep price, or even unprotecting the 2027 and then sending another first is kind of a steep price for a guy like him, in my opinion, at least. But I have a different conversation, not about the basketball value of the player, but about the player's utility itself. And I'm not talking about talent, so we'll remove that part of this conversation. Walker Kessler to me strikes me as a guy who's very talented, Tyson Chandler-esque at this very peak, very talented rim defender, DeAndre Jordan-esque, very talented rim defender, probably finisher, that sort of thing. But my concern is that in the playoffs, guys like him become a little more situational in their usage, playing with AD specifically. Now, if he's a backup center, he's super helpful. No issues there. But playing him with AD can sometimes be an issue. You see OKC be able to go 5 out, play Jalen Williams at the 5, essentially, and keep up with even the biggest teams. We saw that with the Cleveland OKC matchup. You see Boston do it. Cleveland could probably do it if they really wanted to. All the best teams. The Bucks can do it. They can put Giannis at the 5 if they wanted to, and then spread the whole floor out. My issue, Raj, and this is, I think, something that you and I might agree on, might not agree on. I have a point of view that you shouldn't be spending multiple first-round picks, for a player who's going to have situational usage in the playoffs. I think if you're going to spend 2 first-round picks, you have to spend on a guy that in the playoffs, you're going to play him 30, 35 minutes. I'm not going to get into the different ways that Walker Kessler could get played off the floor. That's just the way I perceive him. Is that a fair way of me of me? What do you think about that idea of spending multiple first round picks for a guy who might be situational in the playoffs for the Lakers? That's situational use.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think if you even look at how the minutes are being transferred, and look, maybe JJ also just might not trust. He clearly doesn't trust Koloko, because just no matter how he plays or how much I petition for him to play, he does not get the time that I think that he at least should earn. And Jackson Hayes is if Walker Kessler is situational, then Jackson Hayes is triple situational, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
more of a situational player than even Walker Kessler. Yeah, it's interesting because I do think Kessler would help. I was watching Mavs Nuggets today. Dallas almost won that game before fourth quarter, where Russ and Jokic and they just went.
Let me interrupt you, Raj. Braun fans, please put your earmuffs on for a second, just for like the next 10 seconds. Raj, Russ looked really good in that 2-man game with Jokic at the end of that game, and they were picking apart Dallas. So good for Russ.
He's playing well, on Denver. But the Mavs, they have Lively and Gafford, Vinay, and it's interesting because they use them as if they have 12 fouls, right? And it's just very, you know what I mean? So it's a very interesting watch for centers, because there's just no foul trouble that exists, right? You have double the amount of fouls to kind of use up. And I think that's an interesting way to kind of look at it, if you're going to look at Walker Kessler in that way. But I don't think JJ sees it that way. I think JJ would way rather have the spacing, and I think he wants the 5 out looks. JJ is a guy that loves numbers. He's an analytical person. The Rui Hachimura at center lineups, Vinay, are getting fried.
They're getting destroyed. Yeah.
What lineups continue to get trot out there? The Rui Hachimura, because I think JJ likes that. And I'm not saying the numbers should lead you all the way to every promised land that exists, right? I think there's a way to kind of contextualize that kind of stuff. I think me and you are seeing like, hey, let's not play Rui at center.
We're letting the data be our guide for that.
100%. But that's not what JJ sees. And Dorian Finney-Smith comes in and plays center, right? And Dorian Finney-Smith, I don't know if he wants to play center. He has played some small ball center in Brooklyn, and that's why I think if you were committing to a too big style, and even a too big style, right? And my point with all this, and I think JJ agrees, is that the level to which your defense has to be good for you to play. And let's be clear, Anthony Davis is a non-shooting big. I mean, I don't know if you agree with me, I guess, but like he shot some more threes this year, but I think how defenses are going to guard him, they're going to let Anthony Davis shoot the basketball. And so if you start two non-shooting bigs, the level
they're packing the paint.
100%. So the level at which your defense has to be good to negate the offensive concerns, and which is why I think even in 2020, the best Laker team was AD at center. It's just 15. How long is it? 15 years ago, the best Laker team was Pau Gasol at center. Like it's just I think when the playoffs come around, your ability to space and put more skill on the floor, the amount of skill you can put out there with size is what wins, right? It's I'm not comparing Walker Kessler to his heir apparent Rudy Gobert. I guess he's kind of very strange how this world works, but Rudy Gobert, similar situations, very awesome rim protector, has as many jokes as Rudy Gobert gets. In the playoffs, his value diminishes just because of how teams are able to attack and kind of pinpoint where his weaknesses are. So that's where I'm at with it. First of all, I don't think Danny Ainge is getting 2 first-round picks. It's kind of like saying 2 first-round picks is basically saying he's not available. Is basically what you
no, for sure,
what you're telling me. But so I don't really buy or not buy, it doesn't really matter. I just whatever he goes for, I don't think 2 first-round picks are leaving the Lakers' hands to go get Walker Kessler, who also is on an incredible contract. He makes $5 million next year, so it's understandable why Utah would value him as well. So
there's no rush. He's not a malcontent or something like that in Utah, so it's not like they have. It's not a Jimmy Butler situation. They don't have to get him out of there.
He's also, he's a tall white guy in Utah, which so that's like. Sure, it's not.
You saying that they're going to ask for Dalton Connect back if we try to trade for him? It's got to be a white guy. We're not taking anybody else.
Right. It's not a terrible place to be for him. I think he's like married to Miss America or something, who just won Miss America. Or just some crazy thing that I saw some video on that. But
probably.
In any case, yeah. It's just I get it. I think the Lakers should go out and test the market for a big man. It's just I look at the minute allocation. It's not a ton. And Rome makes a good point about this as well. Does Walker Kessler want to be the backup center? Is that
he's going to want to get paid? Yeah.
Right. So that's where I'm at.
So it's a very specific situation. I think Gray Raj brings up a nice point here. In the YouTube comments, having a bruising center is really about the optionality for him. It's not the way that I like to always. I know in the big chat that I try to make that argument is if guys like Jackson Hayes and Christian Coloco, who I think one of them will be gone if we do get a center. If they're sort of trying to fit in one of those guys into the JaVale McGee role of a guy who will run the floor really hard, finish above the rim, slip screens a lot against slow centers in like the pick and roll situations, then the Lakers need to find their Dwight Howard. They have to find a guy who basically plays the Dwight Howard role as that center, like for the matchups that involve the Steven Adams is, where you can't really use Jackson Hayes and you need to deploy somebody else. Walker Kessler is probably like bringing a bazooka to a knife fight in that situation, but that's also relative to the cost. The bazookas cost a lot of money, I would imagine, if I Google how much they cost. So that's my only thing, Raj. It's not a talent thing. It's not Vinay, you're just throwing bail for the Lakers front office and you don't want him to use the picks because you don't want him to go all in for LeBron. Like, no, it's none of that stuff. I just think that if you're going to use those 2 first-round picks, I'd wait and see if Brandon Ingram becomes available and rather use it on him than use 2 first-round picks on a guy like Walker Kessler, because I know Brandon's going to play all 30 minutes, assuming he's healthy, going to play 30, 35, 40 minutes in the playoffs. And he's a wing and he's a tall guy and he can help. We don't have to rely on Rui as much. We don't have to rely on non-shooters as much if we have another tall guy on the floor. So that's just the way I think of it. Nothing against Walker Kessler, just the idea of spending those picks if all you need is like 8 to 10 minutes of Jonas Valanciunas, can you survive those minutes? Maybe if Vandal looks good, if Rui's back on the bench or if Rui's on the team. But that's the way I kind of think of it.
Right. I think the team is going towards an identity that's away from a too big look, right?
Yeah.
I just think like that's where the team is going. And look, like I think the Lakers should have Ivica Zubac on their team, and just yeah, I think he would be awesome here. So
Mhm.
like I don't know how much if he would start next to ED or whatever, but that's an awesome option to have. Is Walker
Mhm.
Kessler as good as Zoo? I don't know. I haven't watched Walker Kessler enough to kind of know that answer. But yeah, I don't think the Lakers are giving up that much future equity for Walker Kessler right now. And there's just no salary, so you'd have to kind of overpay in draft equity. It's just
And
unless
that's the idea. Yeah.
that right. So it'd be I don't see that coming to fruition. So we'll see where they go with it. There is a conditioning part of this, Renee, where like you also don't want AD banging with every big man
Yeah.
that exists until the playoffs start. There's just a level of bruising that he takes that clearly, even as much as we as fans say, just tough it up. There's a level of Anthony Davis has been very clearly messaging like, hey, I don't want to do this
Yeah.
for every single day. But the Lakers haven't really listened in a in any meaningful manner for a few years. But there's that part of it too. I don't think Walker has to be the answer there. I love the way you put it though. Bringing a bazooka to a knife fight. I think that's exactly it. Bazookas are very expensive, and so
Bazookas are very expensive for
yeah,
sure.
and so
Um,
that's where I'm at.
yeah, yeah. Well, Raj, I think we have a couple of questions. So I mean, ultimately, we'll see. We'll see what happens with it. So we don't have too many questions in the chat this time around because we didn't really do a big section on trades and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. But there were some names I mentioned. Savage mentions Nick Richards. I think you would agree with this. He's a great option. Very low salary. He's like pretty much
Sure.
ideally the low salary option. I know there's been basketball grades floating around. Again, um, I'm a big proponent of analytics are important, but they only give historical context. They don't. They're not necessarily um, outside of the shooting analytics. Shooting analytics are predictors of future success, but some situational analytics, like how good of a rim defender he is and stuff like that, can change based on the team and the role that you're playing. So I think Nick Richards is a great option, low salary option for Lakers. I'm not against the idea of Jonas, depending on what the cost for a guy like Jonas. I think you and I both really like Dayron.
Yeah.
Just young guy, very low salary. We have an inside track with his agent, being Austin's agent. Maybe getting him on a reasonable deal and moving into the future, that sort of thing. But there is one question here, courtesy of Jay Busy on from YouTube. How many moves, Raj, do you think the Lakers? We'll probably just do this one question,
Oof.
so we don't go too overtime. How many moves do you think the Lakers are from being contenders, and what are those moves you think are great? I'll make this an easier question, Raj.
Sure.
What don't give me the number of moves. What are the, let's say, one or two things that you think the Lakers have to do personnel wise for them to be considered contenders?
Yeah, so I think part of this also is with see what Vando returns as, and then you can kind of assess. I do think we just wax poetic about Max Christie. I think the Lakers need to find out between now and the trade deadline how real that is. Is Max Christie even a championship starting two guard?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the answer to that yet. I think he's playing well, and I'd like to see a little bit more film on that. I'd like one more ball handler in between that goes from I don't our ball handling Vinay goes from LeBron Austin to Gabe Vincent, and it's just
It's a big drop off. Yeah,
it's a steep drop, and
yeah.
I just like one more ball handler kind of mixed in between that. I don't know where that comes from, whether that's through trade or whatever it is. That's kind of where the next step to me. I think the rest of the roster has kind of filled itself out,
Mm-hmm.
and probably one more, whether Koloko fits this or not, but just one more center. I think that can kind of just you put it be a goon or just get rebounds and do dirty work type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Which isn't a ton, right? You look at the top of the West, it's OKC, and then it's just a hold of teams that
I mean, Raj, Denver's doing it with DeAndre Jordan as their backup center,
right, and he's catching
and
lobs and dunks.
yeah,
It's just
it doesn't take a
amazing.
lot. Just need the size, the weight, the strength,
Yeah.
the goon.
Right.
So
DeAndre
yeah,
Jordan a goon? I don't know.
nah, he's a nice guy, dude. Apparently he's like a super nice dude. But
Oh,
I mean, he could be an asshole on the court. That's like the thing with Russ. That
right.
was like a big thing. Like he's friends with everybody, but when he's on the court, he's just an a hole to everybody that's not wearing the same jersey as him. So, but I mean, they're doing it. They have a guy, Zeke Naji. I
Zeke
don't know if he's
Naji?
healthy. Yeah, Zeke Naji. I don't know if he's healthy or not healthy. DeAndre's playing over him right now.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
DeAndre's playing.
yeah.
So
He hasn't played well.
yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what the Lakers do. I'm with you. I think an option like a rough and rugged five is important. I think that's the first thing, and then figuring out whether it's a ball handling scorer, 6-man sort of guy in that Gabe role. If that's the other one, if that makes more sense for the Lakers. But I think that gets you pretty close to being a really good team.
Yeah.
At least into like the top four. I think it clears up a lot of the issues that the Lakers have had so far. So, folks, we appreciate everybody that was able to join the YouTube. As we said at the start, if you do have any friends, family that have been affected by the Southern California wildfires, we send our thoughts, prayers, condolences, everything to them. And if you are able to donate or help in any capacity, we highly encourage that you do that, as many folks in LA have been affected by this fire. But as always, whether you're watching this now or you're watching this later, we appreciate you. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, please do subscribe. That always helps the channel. Send a like, comment, whatever it is. I read all of it, so I appreciate all the folks that do that. Stay tuned for more Lakers Extra Detailed. I'll be able to sneak Raj onto some of these when we do them, and we can do film breakdowns for important stretches of basketball. So I appreciate the folks who've been tuning in for those two as well. But as always, whether you're listening to this now or you end up listening to this later, we appreciate you. And if nothing else, we'll catch you guys in the next one. Stay safe and take it easy.
Peace.